Kira Morgan woke just before dawn, as she did every morning. The muted glow of a street lamp slipped through the window, casting long shadows across her bedroom wall. Beside her, Ethan, her 2-year-old son, was already stirring in his crib. Soft giggles drifted down the hall, and Kira allowed herself a small, bittersweet smile. Being a stay-at-home mom had its moments of pure joy. But lately, with each passing day, the joy felt thinner, almost hollow. She slipped from the bed, careful not to wake her husband Daniel, and tiptoed toward Ethan's nursery. The wooden floor was cool beneath her bare feet. She reached into the crib, scooping Ethan into her arms. He yawned, clutching a small stuffed giraffe in one hand. Kira pressed her cheek against his soft hair, inhaling the faint scent of baby shampoo. "Good morning, my sunshine," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. They moved together toward the kitchen. Outside, birds were starting to chirp in the early light. Kira turned on the overhead light. The room was immaculate. White cabinets, a polished wooden table, and a vase of fresh daisies on the counter. She placed Ethan in his high chair and poured a bowl of oatmeal for him. "Here you go, baby," she said, offering a small spoonful. He ate happily, his bright eyes fixed on her. Moments later, Daniel slipped into the kitchen. He was already dressed in slacks and a crisp button-down shirt, hair neatly combed. He kissed Kira on the forehead. "Hey, sleepyhead," he murmured. "I'm heading out." He bent down, tickling Ethan's side. The toddler squealed, nearly tipping his spoon. Daniel straightened and kissed Kira again. "I'll be back before dinner." He walked out without looking back. Kira's heart tightened. Daniel's departures had become more abrupt in recent weeks. Usually he lingered, offering to help with breakfast or entertain Ethan for a moment. Now he simply slipped away, as if occupying a space elsewhere. She shrugged it away. Perhaps it was just the busy season at the advertising agency where he worked. She finished feeding Ethan and then changed his diaper and clothes for the day. After breakfast, Kira settled into the living room with her laptop to check parenting blogs. The walls around her were decorated with family photos. A Christmas snapshot of Ethan bundled in a red sweater. A springtime portrait of the 3 of them at the local playground. Occasionally, she paused to admire the images, letting a small surge of warmth spread through her chest. But any contentment was overshadowed by a dull ache in her stomach. Something felt off. Around mid-morning, Kira received a text from her best friend, Alice. "Coffee today? I need to vent." The message appeared at 10:02 a.m. She frowned. Alice, who lived just a few blocks away, rarely asked to meet so suddenly. Yesterday, Alice had mentioned feeling uneasy in her own marriage. Kira typed, "Sure, I'll be there at noon," and closed her laptop. At 11, she loaded Ethan into the car seat and drove 2 streets over to Alice's house. The day was mild. A gentle breeze lifted knotted strands of her hair. She knocked at the front door, and soon Alice opened it. Her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun. Her face looked drawn. She ushered Kira inside. "Hey," Kira said, stepping into the living room. The decor was cozy. Soft pastel walls, a plush sofa, and children's toys scattered on the floor. "You okay?" Alice curled into a throw pillow. "I just needed someone who understands." Kira sat beside her, placing a hand on her friend's arm. "What's going on?" Alice hesitated, looking away. "It's Mark," she said softly. "I think he's been seeing someone else." Kira's heart sank. Mark was Alice's husband and had once been her high school sweetheart. "How do you know?" she asked gently. Alice exhaled sharply. I found a receipt in his coat pocket. Dinner for two at a fancy restaurant downtown. It's not a place he'd normally go. She paused. And his phone? It's always pinned face down now. She pressed her lips together. I don't have any proof yet, but I feel it in my gut. Kira squeezed Alice's hand. That sucks. I'm so sorry. Have you confronted him? Alice shook her head. I'm too scared to even ask. She closed her eyes. I just feel like I'm losing him. Kira felt a familiar tug deep in her chest. Only weeks ago, she had brushed off her own suspicions about Daniel. Could she really be wrong about him? She forced a smile. If you need anything, I'm here. Anytime. Alice nodded, but her expression remained tense. They sipped coffee quietly for a while. The only sound, the ticking clock on the wall, and Ethan's occasional babble from his carrier. After a few minutes, they parted with a hug and reassurances. Driving home, Kira's mind raced. What if Alice was right? In the back of her mind, memories stirred. The nights Daniel came home late, excuses about extra work hours, the faint scent of a perfume that wasn't hers. She shrugged it away. No, she told herself, don't be paranoid. He loved you. She clenched the steering wheel as tears pricked her eyes. She vowed to trust him. Late that evening, as Ethan slept, Kira and Daniel sat at the dining table with takeout pizza. The overhead light was dim, and outside the window, shadows flickered as a passing car whizzed by. Daniel was unusually distant, picking at his pizza crust without meeting Kira's gaze. Kira, I'm sorry I've been so stressed, he said finally. His voice was low. Work has been brutal. She nodded. I get that. I just miss us is all. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I miss you too. I promise I'll be better. She studied his face, tired skin under his eyes, a stiff line to his mouth. He was whispering truths, but something in his tone felt rehearsed, like he'd said it 100 times before. Kira swallowed hard. Okay, she whispered. She forced herself to believe him. After dinner, Kira cleaned up and tucked Ethan into bed, while Daniel retired to his home office. She caught a glimpse of him through the open door. He was hunched over a laptop, the blue glow of the screen illuminating his tense shoulders. She clicked off the light and tiptoed to bed, her mind swirling with doubts. Could she trust him? Should she trust him? As she lay in the dark, her phone buzzed with a notification. A message from an unknown number. She unlocked it. Your husband is not who you think. I'm sorry you have to find out this way. The text felt like a punch to the gut. Kira's hand trembled. When dawn's first light crept through the curtains, Kira was still wide awake. Ethan would soon wake and another day would begin. But now she knew. The whispers from behind closed doors were much louder than she'd ever imagined. Cliffhanger. An ominous message from an unknown sender hints at Daniel's betrayal. Kira will have to confront a painful possibility tomorrow. The next morning, Kira's eyes snapped open well before sunrise. A dull ache throbbed in her chest. Yesterday's text from the unknown number played on a loop in her mind. Was someone playing a sick joke? Or was her husband truly hiding something? She forced herself out of bed, slipping on a robe as she tiptoed past Daniel's side of the mattress. He was still asleep, face relaxed in the dim half-light of the bedroom lamp. For a moment, Kira longed for the days when his breathing in bed felt like reassurance. Now it felt like a ticking time bomb. She walked to Ethan's room, where her son sat propped against pillows, clutching his stuffed giraffe. Hi, baby, she whispered, scooping him up. His warmth against her cheek was soothing. She ignored the urge to phone Alice or call her sister. She needed to approach this with a clear head. After feeding Ethan his breakfast, she wrapped him in a small jacket and took him outside for a walk around the block. The cool morning air cleared her mind, but did nothing to quiet her worries. When they returned, the front door creaked as Kira closed it. Through the glass, she spotted Daniel's car still in the driveway. She frowned. He should have left by now. She set Ethan down and walked through the kitchen. She could see his office door ajar. Inside, Daniel sat at his desk, tapping on the keyboard, the laptop's glow casting shadows across his face. "Kira?" he asked without looking up. "Is Ethan up?" His tone was neutral, almost robotic. She caught her breath. "Yeah, I took him for a walk. I thought maybe you were already gone." Daniel's eyes lingered on her. "No, I had some extra work. Sorry I didn't say something." She nodded numbly, forcing a tight-lipped smile. "Okay." Daniel turned back to his screen. A detail caught her eye. A pair of lipstick-stained coffee cups on the desk. Discarded, unwashed. They were the deep crimson shade she never wore. Too formal. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe Daniel had borrowed a cup from a client at the office. She refused to let herself spiral. She smiled reassuringly. "I'm going to drop Ethan at daycare." He didn't reply immediately, just nodded. The silence in the room felt heavy, crackling with something unsaid. At daycare, she handed Ethan to Miss Harper, the caregiver. "He's ready for the day," Kira said quietly. Miss Harper gave her a sympathetic look. "You okay, sweetie? You look tired." Kira managed a small laugh. "I'm fine, just running on fumes." She kissed Ethan's cheek as he ran off to play. Then she dropped her keys on the desk and left. Back at home, the silence was deafening. She climbed the stairs to the office door, heart hammering. Faintly, she heard Daniel talking on the phone. "No. I said it has to be done today." His voice was low but urgent. He clicked off the call as soon as she reached the doorway, swiveling in his chair. "Hey," he said, standing up. "I was just catching up before I head out." She folded her arms. "Who was that?" "Just a client." He avoided her gaze. "I'll be gone all day. I have an early meeting." She took a deep breath. "Daniel, He cut her off, steadying his tone. "Kira, I'm stressed. I need to focus." He gestured toward the door. "I have to go. Sorry." Her instincts flared. This was no ordinary office stress. But instead of accusing him, she swallowed her words and nodded. "Okay, drive safe." She watched as he left, shoulders hunched, eyes downcast. Once he was gone, she hurried back down the stairs and locked her safe in their bedroom. She opened the bottom drawer of Daniel's dresser, something she'd never dared to do before. Her fingers brushed against the smooth surface of his wallet. She slid it out and unzipped it. Inside, she found a crumpled photograph. Daniel standing close to a woman whose face hadn't been captured by the camera. A back of the headshot, long black hair, a bright red scarf around her neck. Under the image was a diner receipt dated 2 nights ago. The restaurant name was unfamiliar to Kira, the Rusty Spoon. Her stomach dropped. She pressed the photo closer, breathing shallowly. Was that? She blinked, trying to force perspective. "It's just a picture," she told herself, placing it back. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. She shoved the wallet back into the drawer, slamming it shut. For the rest of the day, she struggled to concentrate. At the computer, she stared at a blank screen, unable to focus on the freelance article she'd promised to write for extra income. Every ping of her phone made her jump. Anxiety rose like bile in her throat. She tried reaching Alice. 2 calls went straight to voicemail. She typed a quick text, "Need to talk, ASAP," and hit send. By mid-afternoon, Daniel still hadn't returned her texts. She took a deep breath and decided to drive to the Rusty Spoon. convinced she'd find someone there who recognized him. When she arrived, the small diner sat on a quiet side street. Neon lights flickered, and inside a handful of patrons sipped coffee. Kira slid into a booth near the window, scanning the faces. She shook her head. None of them looked like the woman in the photo. She asked for the manager. But he said Daniel had never been there alone. He came with a woman a couple nights ago, the manager admitted. But no, I don't know who she is. They kept to themselves. Kira's breathing became shallow. Did they pay with cash? She whispered. Yeah, he said. They left no contact info. She nodded, choking back a sob. She left a $20 tip on the table and rushed out into the cold air. Her car had warmed, defrosting the windshield. She sank into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. She dialed Alice again. This time, her friend answered on the first ring. Hey, Alice's voice trembled. What's going on? Her throat felt raw. He's been meeting someone, she blurted. I saw the photo and the diner receipt. She paused, biting her lip. Tears pricked her eyes. Alice, I'm so scared. Alice went silent for a moment. Oh, Kira, she said finally. I'm so sorry. You deserve to know the truth. A wave of relief and dread washed over her. What do I do? Start by talking to him, face to face, and maybe look at his phone. Kira's heart pounded. I can't just. Trust me, you have to, Alice pressed gently. Ignoring it won't make it vanish. Kira ended the call and took a deep breath. She couldn't keep tiptoeing around this. She drove home, the city blurring in her mind as the late afternoon sun dipped behind rooftops. Pulling into the driveway, she saw Daniel's car was gone. He'd left without a word. Again. Inside, the house felt impossibly large and empty. She sank onto the couch, closing her eyes, grappling with what to do next. Confront him now, or wait until he returned? Her phone buzzed again. A text from Alice. I'll come over tonight. Kira stared at the screen, her emotions fraying at the edges. She realized this was only the beginning. The truth was looming closer than ever, and once it emerged, nothing would ever be the same. Cliffhanger. Kira knows Daniel is meeting someone else. Proof in a photograph and a receipt. She must decide whether to confront him directly or keep digging. The tension between what she wants to believe and reality tightens around her like a noose. Even before dawn broke, Kira was wide awake. Her mind raced with half-formed thoughts. The photo, the receipt, Alice's warnings. She tried to breathe steadily, but a trembling in her chest refused to subside. The house felt stifling, and she knew the only way forward was to see the evidence with her own eyes. She put Ethan in his crib for a few more minutes and padded into the office where Daniel kept his phone on his desk. It sat face down. Kira's throat tightened. If she turned over that phone, she'd cross a line, her own sense of privacy. But she felt she no longer had a choice. She knelt beside the desk and gingerly flipped it over. A handful of messages glowed on the screen, all from a contact saved only as AM. Can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you already. Text me when you get home. Kira's heart pounded in her ears. AM, she whispered. The initials made her stomach drop. She scrolled through the thread, finding texts dating back several weeks, all exchanged during Daniel's supposed late nights at work. No mention of any business matters, only affectionate, intimate phrases. Her breath hitched. She snapped a photo of the messages with her own phone to keep as evidence, and she quietly placed Daniel's phone back, ensuring the desk looked undisturbed. By the time Daniel emerged from his home office, hair disheveled and tie loosened, Kira was back in the kitchen, making coffee. Kira swallowed hard. "We need to talk," she said softly, bending to buckle Ethan into his stroller. Daniel's eyes flicked to the child, then back to her. "Can it wait until tonight? I've got to wrap up some things first." "No," she said firmly. She pushed open the front door. "It can't." He frowned. "Kira, whatever this is," she cut him off, standing tall. "I saw the texts, Daniel. From AM." She watched his face lose color. "At least that's how they're saved." He closed his eyes for a moment. "It's not what you think." Kira felt a rush of anger and betrayal. "Really? Because it looks like you've been cheating on me." He put his coffee cup down, as if afraid it might shatter in his hands. It's complicated." He ran a hand through his hair. "I love you, Kira. You have to believe that." "Do you?" she said sharply. "Because it sure looks like you love her more." The stroller rolled forward. Ethan gurgled happily, oblivious to his parents' turmoil. Kira took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Tell me who she is." Daniel lowered his head. After a pause, he said, "Her name is Amanda. She works at the boutique near my office." Kira's chest tightened. "Why didn't I know?" He hesitated, visibly struggling. "It started as friendship. She freelanced for me on a marketing project. We sat together over lunches, and then it just happened." Her vision blurred. "You've been sleeping with her." "That's not fair." He raised his hand. "It wasn't just sex. She's been there for me when I felt lost. Work's been rough, and—" "Don't give me that," Kira spat. "You lied to me," she exhaled sharply. "And you've been lying for weeks. For how many lunch breaks? How many late nights? How many times you avoided me?" Daniel winced, but didn't defend himself. Kira felt tears prick her eyes. She turned away and began to push the stroller down the front steps. "I need to clear my head," she said. I can't do this here." He followed her outside. "Please let me explain." She stopped, unsnapped Ethan's stroller, knelt to his level. "You go straight home from work, and don't stop texting her." Kira bit her lip as Ethan looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes. She forced her voice to calm. "Mommy needs some air. I'll check on you later." She lifted the stroller handle and walked briskly down the sidewalk. Daniel watched her go, torn between guilt and frustration. Kira crossed the street, feeling the morning chill burn her lungs. She unfolded her phone and called Alice. "It's worse than I thought," she whispered when Alice answered on the second ring. Alice's voice was soft. "I'm coming over." Kira ended the call and continued walking. She spotted the boutique, Amanda's boutique, 2 blocks away. The large bay window displayed delicate scarves and jewelry. She entered, heart pounding, finding herself face to face with a petite woman in her late 20s, blonde hair tied back neatly, wearing a soft pink blouse and dark jeans. The woman glanced up and smiled. "Hello," the woman said. "Can I help you?" Kira swallowed. "You're Amanda?" Her lips curved into a polite smile. "Yes, you must be Mrs. Morgan, Daniel's wife." Kira took a step back, mind reeling. "What are you doing with him?" Amanda's expression remained composed, though her eyes flickered with something. Regret? Defiance? Hard to tell. "We worked together on a campaign. There was a connection. I didn't set out to hurt anyone." "Didn't you?" Kira echoed. Tears stung her eyes. "You knew he was married." Amanda sighed. "Yes, but he told me it was complicated. He said you two were having problems." Kira's jaw tightened. "So instead of talking to me, you two had an affair?" "Hey, I'm not the villain here. Daniel pursued me, not the other way around." Her words were calm, practiced. Kira's anger flared. "You're right. I'm not the villain. He's the bastard who can't keep it in his pants." Amanda held up her hands defensively. "I'm just as guilty. I'm sorry." Kira shook her head. "Sorry? You think sorry makes this okay?" She turned on her heel and rushed outside. She didn't stop until she reached her car. She sat behind the wheel, breathing hard, trying to process the confrontation. After a moment, she dialed Alice once more. "I'm coming over." The drive to Alice's house took less than 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. She pulled into the driveway, slammed the door, and raced inside. Alice opened the door, worry etched on her face. "Are you okay?" Kira sank onto the sofa, hugging her knees. "He's been sleeping with her for months," she said, voice cracking. "Amanda says he told her we were having problems." Alice knelt beside her. "I'm so sorry. You deserve better." Kira shook her head. "I don't know what I deserve anymore." She closed her eyes. "He looked at me like I was nothing." Alice wrapped an arm around her. "You're not nothing. You're a good wife, a loving mom." Kira laughed bitterly. "Yeah, right. A good wife who didn't even notice her husband was cheating." Alice sighed. "He's the one who's at fault, not you." Kira pulled back, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I feel so stupid." Alice wiped Kira's tears. "Don't. He lied to both of us. You're not stupid. You're trusting. That's a strength, not a weakness." Kira wanted to agree, but all she felt was a hollow ache. She buried her face in her hands, letting her tears fall. After a moment, she sat up, determined. "I need to think. I need to figure out what to do." Alice nodded. "And I'll be here every step of the way." As the sunlight waned outside, Kira sat on Alice's couch. The room filled with the soft hum of air conditioning and the occasional creak of the floor. She wondered how many nights Daniel had worshipped the same ceiling above her, while his mind was somewhere else entirely. The betrayal cut deeper than she'd ever imagined. The woman he had chosen, who was she, really? What did Daniel see in her that he didn't see in his own wife? Over the next hour, Kira and Alice talked about divorce lawyers, possible reconciliation, how to protect Ethan emotionally, and how to talk to him when he asked why Dad wasn't around. They spoke cautiously. The future was uncertain. When Kira finally rose to leave, it was nearly dark. She hugged Alice tightly and walked back to her car, Ethan sleeping soundly on the back seat. As Kira drove home, her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: fear, rage, sadness, and an odd flicker of relief mingled inside her. She realized this moment would shatter her life as she knew it. But if Daniel no longer loved her, leaving might be the only way to preserve her dignity and protect Ethan from further pain. Pulling into the driveway, she saw the front lights were off. The house looked dark and empty. Kira took a deep breath, reached for Ethan's small hand in the back seat, and whispered, "Things are about to change." Cliffhanger. Kira definitively discovers the affair and confronts Amanda, then confides in Alice. Her next steps remain uncertain. The emotional fallout has begun, and Kira must decide whether to stay or leave, how to protect herself and her son. Early the next morning, Kira's phone alarm buzzed at 6 a.m. She woke slowly, exhaustion etched into her bones. Last night's conversation with Alice had left her mentally drained. She checked on Ethan. He was still asleep in his crib, small chest rising and falling. Gently, she lifted him and carried him to the bed. For a few moments, mother and son lay quietly together, the world outside still dark. The comfort of his warmth was a reminder of what she had to protect. Daniel's side of the bed was empty. The guilt fluttered in Kira's chest again. Had he gone out? Called Amanda? Or perhaps he realized the gravity of the situation and stayed away to avoid confrontation. Either way, Kira knew she couldn't wait any longer. She would confront him before this marriage collapsed under the weight of lies. After getting Ethan settled with a quick breakfast, Kira sat on the couch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. At exactly 7:30 a.m., she called Daniel's cell. No answer. She left a terse voicemail. At 3 o'clock p.m., Kira retrieved Ethan from daycare and took him to the park. She pushed him on the swings, soaking in the crisp autumn air. The sky was a pale gray, leaves drifting down from the trees like gold and crimson confetti. She watched Ethan's small form swing back and forth, carefree laughter echoing. For a fleeting moment, she wished she could freeze time and protect him from everything. The next swing arc, though, threatened to thrust him from her grasp, reminding her that life moved forward, whether she wanted it to or not. They walked home as the sun dipped lower. Kira prepared a simple dinner, grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, knowing Daniel would hate it, but she didn't care. Her only goal was to keep Ethan occupied until the showdown. They ate at 5:30 p.m. Ethan babbled through nearly every bite, wife and husband splitting duty of cleaning up. Daniel arrived home at 6 p.m., wearing a navy suit and tie. His hair was slightly mussed, and there was a crease of fatigue between his brows. Kira's stomach clenched. He kissed Ethan on the head. "Hey, bud," he said quietly. Ethan grinned up at him, holding out a toy dinosaur. Daniel patted his hand, then looked over at Kira. "You said you needed to talk?" She nodded, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. "We're going to do it now." She led him to the living room, seating Ethan with a puzzle in the corner. Kira couldn't bear to look at him directly. She felt her anger and hurt too keenly. She perched on the edge of the sofa, Daniel standing before her. "Kira," he said, voice low. "I'm sorry. We can talk about—" "Save it," she snapped. Ethan was busily sorting puzzle pieces, oblivious to his parents' conflict. "I saw everything. The texts. The receipt. Amanda confirmed it. You've been with her for months." He closed his eyes, swallowing. "It's not exactly like that." "What is it like, Daniel?" Her voice wavered, but she forced it steady. "Huh? That you love me but love her too? That you're so torn? Or that you don't even know what you want?" He let out a hollow sigh. "You know I've been under pressure at work. Amanda, was there for me when you and I didn't talk. I wasn't looking for an affair, but it just happened." Kira's heart pounded. "You cheated on me. In our own bed. With someone who knew damn well you were married." He looked pained, but unmoved. "I couldn't talk to you. You were always so busy with Ethan." He raised his voice slightly. "I felt like you didn't care." And Amanda listened. Her eyes stung. "I do care. I work every day to provide for this family, to keep us moving forward. I clean up after you, care for Ethan." "That's your job," he interrupted. "I'm the one who brings in money. You stay home with the kid." Kira felt a cold flash of rage. "You think because I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm worthless? Everything I do matters." He rolled his eyes. "I didn't say that. But you never once asked me how I was doing. You wouldn't let me talk about work stress." She stood abruptly. "Because you never came home to talk. You came home to text from her. And now you blame me for your cheating." Daniel's expression hardened. "You're making this about me, but it's about us. We both have issues." Kira laughed, bitterness lacing each word. "Oh, now we're in therapy?" She pointed at the doorway. "You're moving out." He stared at her, stunned. "What?" "I've already asked my sister to stay with us for a few days. I need space. You need space." Her arms trembled as she crossed them. "Figure out what you want. Do you want me and Ethan, or her?" He swallowed sharply, his jaw clenched. "So that's it? You're sending me away?" She met his gaze, tears pricking. "I can't trust you. Not anymore. Not until you make up your mind." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "I don't want to lose you. I already lost you." She turned away, unable to watch him. "Just go." He hesitated, then slumped his shoulders and walked to the front door. Kira followed him to the threshold. He paused in the doorway, looking at Ethan, who was holding up a puzzle piece with a triumphant grin. Daniel's eyes softened for a split second as he watched his son. Then he looked at Kira. "I love you," he said quietly. She closed her eyes, brushing tears away. "Love would mean being honest. You've shown me nothing but lies." Without another word, she stepped aside, letting him leave. The front door clicked softly behind him. Kira sank onto the bottom step, sobbing quietly. The weight of the day crashed into her. The discovery, the confrontation, the finality of Daniel's departure. She knew her world had irrevocably changed. Over the next few hours, Kira called her sister to coordinate the short-term move. She packed a few essentials for Daniel: clothes, toiletries, and some of his favorite books, placing them neatly by the door. She taped a printed copy of the divorce paperwork to his side of the closet as a formal notice. She wasn't ready to file yet, but she needed him to know she meant business. By evening, her sister, Jenna, arrived. She gave Kira a tight hug at the door. "How are you holding up?" Kira forced a shaky laugh. "I'm alive." She stepped aside to let Jenna in, then sat at the edge of the couch, hugging her knees. "Everything's gone to hell." Jenna sat next to her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "We'll figure this out, okay? You're not alone." Kira nodded against her sister's shoulder, tears still damp on her cheeks. "I have to protect Ethan." Jenna kissed her temple. "And you will." She stood and headed upstairs. "Your room's ready." Kira watched Jenna carry a few belongings upstairs before turning back to the living room. Ethan was asleep on the floor, clutching his giraffe. She tucked a blanket around him and sat in the armchair, staring at the empty doorway where Daniel had left. The room felt unbearably quiet. Late that night, Kira lay awake in Jenna's guest room. Jenna was already asleep on her own bed. Kira stared at the ceiling, breathing shallowly. A sudden thought struck her. "I don't know if I still love him." But it was harder to admit than anything else. The betrayal had fractured her trust. And though a part of her still remembered the man she married, another part felt only anger and hurt. She slipped out of bed, tiptoeing downstairs to the kitchen, where a half-empty bottle of wine and 2 glasses sat on the counter. She poured herself a small glass and carried it to the living room, settling into the armchair. The house was dark, except for the pale glow of a street lamp through the window. She took a slow sip, letting the cold sting of bourbon spread warmth through her chest. As she sat there, the reality of her new life sank in. Daniel was gone. Amanda, presumably waiting for him. And Kira, she was alone with Ethan, and a world that felt unsteady beneath her feet. She took another sip. Tomorrow, she would have to face changing bank accounts, daycare payments, possibly lawyers. But tonight, she allowed herself this moment of stillness. She thought of Alice, and how only a week ago, the gravest concern had been whether Daniel's late nights were just work. She realized how naive she'd been. Now, every memory of her marriage was tinged with betrayal. She stood and emptied the glass, then crumpled the wine bottle into the sink. She climbed the stairs and slipped into bed. Jenna rolled over and murmured, "Good night," in her sleep. Kira closed her eyes, hugging her pillow. Tomorrow, she would begin rebuilding. Cliffhanger. Daniel moves out, and Kira must navigate life as a separated mother, with her own sister's help, figuring out finances, emotional recovery, and how to explain everything to Ethan in the months ahead. The first full day without Daniel was a blur of logistics and adrenaline. Kira rose before dawn, preparing breakfast for Ethan and her sister, Jenna. She managed to get both of them fed, dressed, and out the door to daycare and her sister's office, a small marketing firm where Jenna worked half days. Feeling the weight of tasks ahead, she forced herself to breathe deeply. By mid-morning, Kira sat in the living room, surrounded by bills and paperwork. On the coffee table lay bank statements, mortgage documents, and the printed divorce notice she had taped in Daniel's closet. She knew she had to change joint accounts into her name alone, but the bank was closed until 10 o'clock a.m. She set an alarm on her phone and tried to focus on a freelance article assignment about healthy breakfast recipes, but her mind kept drifting. When 10 o'clock a.m. arrived, she called the bank's customer service line. After navigating several automated menus, she was finally connected to a representative. "We understand you need to change account permissions," the rep said. "For security, we'll need a few pieces of information and a signed copy of your divorce notice." Kira's heart sank. She felt disoriented, as if she wasn't the same person who'd married Daniel. "Okay," she said, voice tight. "What else do you need?" The rep listed a few more items: her driver's license, social security number, proof of address. Kira jotted everything down. "Thank you," she said. She hung up and stared at the pile of papers. Each piece felt like a reminder of how much had changed. She spent the next hour scanning and emailing documents to the bank. During that time, she received a text from Daniel. "We need to talk." Kira stared at the message for several minutes before typing back, "We will, when I have time." Then she deleted his number from her phone's favorites. She didn't want the constant ping of his name invading her headspace. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Amanda. "I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. Please, let's talk." Kira's chest constricted. She blocked Amanda's number immediately. No apologies, no explanations, not now. When Jenna arrived home for lunch, she found Kira asleep on the couch, papers piled around her. Jenna gently woke her and handed her a mug of coffee and a sandwich. "You look exhausted," she murmured. Kira rubbed her eyes. "I barely slept last night." She accepted the sandwich and took a small bite. "Everything feels so—" She waved her hand at the stack of papers. "Overwhelming." Jenna knelt beside her and patted her arm. "I'll help you sort through this. Then, tonight, we'll go out for dinner. You need a break." Kira managed a small smile. "Thanks." After lunch, they spent the afternoon tackling household duties, sorting mail, organizing bills, deep cleaning the kitchen. When the bank called back around 3 p.m. to confirm her document submissions, Kira felt a flicker of relief. She had completed one more step toward independence. By dinner time, Kira and Jenna sat at a local bistro, a cozy place with soft lighting and a chalkboard menu listing homemade soups and paninis. Kira ordered tomato bisque and a side salad. Jenna got a grilled chicken panini. They talked about trivial things, work gossip, Jenna's weekend plans, anything that would steer Kira's mind away from the weight on her shoulders. Afterward, they walked around the block, the crisp air stinging Kira's cheeks. The city lights glowed against the dark sky, and for a moment, Kira felt almost peaceful. When they returned, Jenna crashed on the guest bed. Kira climbed upstairs to find Ethan already asleep. She watched him for a moment, breathing steadily under his dinosaur-themed blanket. She felt a wave of love and protectiveness for him. He deserved a stable life. even if it meant sacrificing the marriage she once cherished. Over the next couple of days, Kira's routine fell into a fragile rhythm. Mornings at daycare, afternoons handling bank issues, calls with a family attorney for legal advice, and evenings spent putting Ethan to bed. She moved their belongings to a smaller bedroom and set up a new nursery area for him, a small desk, a changing table, and shelves for toys. The house felt quieter without Daniel's presence. Sometimes, late at night, she heard a creak in the hallway and thought it was him coming home. She'd sit upright, heart pounding, only to realize it was just the house settling. One morning, as she sipped her coffee, Kira noticed her reflection in the kitchen window. Her once bright eyes were shadowed with fatigue. Dark circles lined her cheeks. She pressed a hand against her temples, closing her eyes briefly. She couldn't afford to collapse now. For Ethan's sake, she had to remain strong. That afternoon, she received a text from Alice. "Dinner at my place tonight. I cooked your favorite, lasagna. Bring Jenna and Ethan." Kira responded gratefully. "We'll be there." She realized she needed support outside her own home, friends who understood. Alice was the one who first warned her about Daniel. Now she was her anchor. At Alice's house that evening, the aroma of garlic and tomato filled the air. The table was set with salad and breadsticks, and candles flickered softly. Alice greeted them with a warm hug. "Come on in, you two." She ushered them inside, then called in her husband, Mark, who was grilling outside. "Lasagna's almost ready," he called. They sat down, and Alice served generous portions. Ethan dug in happily, and for the first time in days, Kira felt a sense of normalcy. She chatted with Alice about Jenna's work promotion and asked Mark about his latest DIY project in the garage. The levity of the conversation soothed a frayed edge she hadn't realized she still clung to. After dinner, Alice cleared plates while Mark changed Ethan into his pajamas. Then they all gathered in the living room. Mark put on a DVD of a classic family movie. Kira leaned against the sofa cushion, absorbing the laughter of children on screen. She sipped a glass of water as she realized how important it was to let herself breathe, even in the midst of crisis. When they returned home that night, Jenna carried a sleepy Ethan upstairs. Kira changed him into his pajamas, laid him down, and kissed his forehead. "Mommy loves you," she whispered. He closed his eyes. She turned to apologize to Jenna for the late hour, but her sister was already on the couch, eyes closed, snoring softly. Kira draped a blanket over her and crept to her own bed. As she slipped under the covers, Kira felt exhaustion wash over her. Yet beneath it all, a spark of determination ignited. She refused to let this betrayal define her life. Tomorrow, she would finalize the bank changes and meet with the attorney for a formal consultation. She would choose her path deliberately, whether to reconcile or to finalize the divorce. But whatever she decided, she vowed to forge a future where Ethan and she could heal. In the darkness, she closed her eyes. The cold silence of an empty bed beside her reminded her of all she had lost and all she still had to fight for. Cliffhanger. Kira navigates the day-to-day logistics of separation, bank changes, legal advice, emotional survival. She leans on friends and family, but must decide whether to attempt reconciliation with Daniel or move ahead with the divorce. The tension remains. Will she reconcile, or will this betrayal be the end? Kira woke at dawn again, as was her new routine. The past few days had felt like a surreal dream, one where she barely recognized herself. She eased out of bed, careful not to wake Jenna, and opened the bedroom door. The hallway light cast a soft glow on the walls. She padded down the stairs to Ethan's room and found him hollowed out from sleep. thumb in mouth, clutching his stuffed giraffe. Kira smiled sadly. She hugged him and carried him into the kitchen, where she quickly prepared oatmeal and fruit. By 8:30 a.m., she was on a conference call with her attorney, Miss Penn. The call was scheduled to discuss custody arrangements, property division, and next steps. Kira's voice faltered at times, but she managed to speak with composure. Miss Penn advised her to gather documentation of shared property, homes, vehicles, savings accounts, and finalize the bank account changes. She also reassured Kira that as a stay-at-home mom, she could request spousal support to maintain stability for Ethan. Kira scribbled notes frantically, trying to absorb every detail. After dropping Ethan off at daycare, Kira headed to the bank for a final appointment. The bank manager, a middle-aged woman named Sharon, greeted her warmly. They met in a small conference room. With a stack of identification, the divorce notice, and printed bank statements, Kira felt a surge of confidence as each form was checked off. Sharon smiled sympathetically. "I know it's hard, but you're doing great. The accounts are now solely in your name. We'll mail you new checks and a debit card within 5 business days." Kira exhaled. "Thank you, this means a lot." Sharon nodded. "I know. If you need any further assistance, just call." Kira left the bank, holding a fresh folder of documents. She pictured Daniel receiving notice of these changes, feeling both a pang of remorse and relief at having taken control. On her way home, Kira spotted a sign in a storefront window. "Evening blacksmithing classes starting soon." A photo of gleaming metal tools and handmade silver rings accompanied the text. She paused, inspecting the advertisement. The idea of learning a new skill, something physical, creative, appealed to her. She snapped a photo of the flyer and sent it to Alice. "Look at this. Maybe I should try something new." Alice's reply was almost instantaneous. "Yes! You deserve something for you. Let's go look tonight after daycare pickup." In the afternoon, Kira collected Ethan and took him to the park. They fed the ducks by the pond and chased falling leaves. Ethan's laughter was pure, unburdened, and Kira savored those moments. Later, she drove toward the blacksmithing studio, which sat in a converted warehouse a few miles from her home. The old building had exposed brick walls and tall windows, casting soft light into the open concept workspace. Several students were already gathered around benches, each watching as the instructor, Jake Lawrence, demonstrated basic hammering techniques on a piece of heated metal. Jake was in his mid-30s, with short-cropped dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore a leather apron and wielded a heavy hammer like a natural. As he shaped glowing metal, sparks flew, and the room pulsed with focused energy. Kira felt a thrill watching. It had been months since she'd felt excitement bubble inside her. At the back of the room, a teenage assistant named Emily handed Jake a fresh pair of gloves. When Jake finished the demonstration, he removed his safety goggles and scanned the room, smiling. "All right, folks, who's ready to try?" He gestured to a student whose metal piece was nearly shaped into a ring. "Looks good, Lisa. Now hammer it down." He guided her hand. Kira's palms sweated. She approached the registration table hesitantly. A middle-aged receptionist named Carla offered a greeting. "First time?" "Yes," Kira said, voice soft. "I'd like to sign up for evening classes." Carla nodded. "We have a beginner's slot at 6:30 p.m., 3 days a week. It's $150 for the month, including materials. You'll need to wear long sleeves, but we have protective gear here." Kira glanced at her watch. It was 4:45 p.m. She realized if she hurried, she could sign up for next week's classes. She filled out the registration form and paid the fee with her new debit card. Carla handed her a schedule and a waiver. "Welcome aboard. You're going to love it." Kira smiled. Thank you. I already am. Driving home, she felt a rush she hadn't known since before the marriage fell apart. The idea of learning, of creating something with her hands, ignited a new spark. She picked up Ethan from daycare and told Jenna about her sign-up. Jenna congratulated her enthusiastically. That evening, after dinner, Kira slipped into jeans and a long-sleeved shirt. She collected the protective gear Carla had instructed her to prepare: leather apron, gloves, safety glasses, and drove to the studio. When she arrived, the sun had dipped low, and the warehouse windows glowed in the fading light. She parked and joined the others in the workspace. Jake greeted her by name. Good to see you here, Kira. Ready to get started? She nodded, slightly nervous. He handed her a pair of gloves and an apron. I know this is new for you. I'll show you the basics. He walked her over to a workbench with a small forge. He stoked the coals until the fire blazed. First, we heat the steel, he explained. Feel free to ask questions any time. He handed her a pair of tongs. Careful, the metal is hot. He guided her in placing a small steel rod into the flames. The metal glowed bright orange, and she inhaled sharply at the heat. Jake showed her how to hold the hammer. Wrist straight, elbow locked. Let gravity do most of the work. He demonstrated a gentle tap on the heated metal, flattening it slightly. Your turn. Kira raised the hammer, then brought it down with more force than intended. The metal thudded against the anvil. Sparks fizzed. Her heart raced. Like this? She asked, surprised at her own strength. He nodded approvingly. Yes, but keep your wrist steady. Try again. She hit again, this time producing a more controlled strike. The metal changed shape slightly. She could hardly contain her excitement. Watching something raw transform under her hands was thrilling. For the next hour, Kira practiced heating and hammering. Her arms ached from guiding the hammer. Sweat beaded on her forehead beneath the protective goggles. Each time she struck the glowing metal, her heart raced with anticipation. When Jake gave gentle pointers, a bit more force here, or rotate the metal for even thickness, she listened intently, absorbing every word. At the end of the class, Jake gathered everyone around a cart of water-quenching buckets. Always cool your work before moving on, he said. Safety first. Kira followed his instructions, submerging her piece in the water. Steam hissed. The metal cooled instantly, turning a dark gunmetal gray. She held it up. It was a rough, uneven ring, but it was hers, her creation. She felt a surge of pride. I can't believe I made that, she said softly. He smiled. You did. Practice makes perfect. Next week, we'll refine it. He handed her a small cloth to polish it slightly. She ran her fingers over the metal, the hard edges catching on her glove. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded. See you next Monday. As she drove home that night, she felt a sense of elation mixed with exhaustion. Her wrists hurt and her arms were sore, but her mind buzzed with excitement. She'd done something for herself, something that had nothing to do with Daniel or divorce papers. She realized that maybe, in the chaos of her life, this was exactly what she needed. A new skill, a new purpose. When she returned home, Jenna was dozing on the couch, Ethan asleep upstairs. Kira quietly removed her boots, placed the metal ring on her bedside table, and climbed into bed between Jenna and a sleeping Ethan. She drifted off almost immediately, arms and heart heavy in a new way, tired, but with a budding spark of possibility. Cliffhanger. Kira begins blacksmithing classes and forms a tentative bond with instructor Jake. As she rediscovers herself through forging metal, she must decide how far she's willing to go in seeking comfort. Will a new relationship blossom? Or will she keep focus on her own path? A week later, Kira's workout clothes clung uncomfortably to her still sore arms as she climbed out of bed at 5:30 a.m. The previous day's blacksmithing session had left her muscles aching in a way she hadn't felt since high school soccer practice. But the ache was welcome, a reminder that she was pushing herself, reclaiming parts of her life previously overshadowed by betrayals and heartbreak. That morning, she quietly dressed, crept downstairs, and put a pot of coffee on. The aroma filled the kitchen as sunlight crept in through the curtains. She carried a mug to the couch and opened her laptop. She needed to finalize the draft of an article for a local magazine about parenting on a budget. The topic resonated with her. She was living it. She typed with deliberate focus, but every few minutes her mind flitted to Jake's workshop. The heat of the forge, the sound of metal striking metal. The rush of seeing her creations take shape. By 7 a.m., Ethan was awake. She fed him scrambled eggs while Jenna showered upstairs. By 8:30 a.m., Jenna loaded Ethan into the car for daycare. As they drove off, Jenna reached back and squeezed Kira's hand. "You look alive again," she said. "I hope you keep doing those classes." Kira smiled. "I will." Jenna kissed the top of her head and waved as they pulled out. Kira watched them go, then closed the door and retreated to the living room, juggling more bills and emails. That afternoon, Kira sat in the waiting area of her family doctor's office. She had scheduled a routine checkup. It felt important to take care of her physical health too. Her mind drifted as she flipped through a parenting magazine, but she closed it when she realized she was checking her phone too often. When the receptionist called her name, she followed the nurse into an exam room. 20 minutes later, Kira sat on the exam table as Dr. Wynne reviewed her chart. "Your blood pressure is a little high," he said, "but considering your current stress levels, it's understandable. Just try to get enough sleep and manage stress." He scribbled notes. "Everything else looks good." She exhaled in relief. Even now, it felt like a small victory to hear that her body wasn't failing. "Thanks, Doc." She dressed quickly and left. That evening, Kira found herself once again locking up her house at 5:45 p.m. She grabbed her gear bag, hammer, apron, gloves, and climbed into her car. The sky was a deep orange pink as the sun set behind clouds. At the studio, the other students were already gathering, eager for their weekly session. Jake greeted her with a warm smile. "How have you been?" She shrugged lightly. "Good. Work's busy, but I need this." He nodded knowingly. "I get it. Mental reset." He handed her the tongs and guided her toward the forge. "Tonight, let's refine your ring. You're ready to shape it properly." She rolled up her sleeves and tied back her hair. She watched as he heated the ring in fiery coals until it glowed red again. "Now," he said, "position it on the anvil." She placed it carefully, feeling its contours. He demonstrated how to hammer it evenly, then stepped back. "Your turn." Her first strike was tentative, but he gave her encouraging feedback. Over the next hour, they worked side by side, she shaping the metal, he offering pointers. Between strikes, they chatted lightly about life, her separation from Daniel, his own divorce 2 years ago. He spoke quietly about how blacksmithing had been his escape and his marriage ended. Kira found herself relating to his story more than she'd expected. As the session ended, Jake quenched her ring in water. Steam hissed. She picked it up, admiring the smoother shape. "It looks amazing," she said, awe in her voice. He nodded, smiling. "You're a natural." She tucked the ring into her pocket. "Thanks." She lingered by the workbench, the heat of the forge fading, but still warm in the air. The other students filtered out, leaving her and Jake alone. "Thanks again for today." He folded his arms, leaning against a metal shelf. "You're doing great, Kira. Let me know if you need anything." Her pulse quickened. "Actually," she hesitated, glancing away. "Do you ever hang out outside of class? Like grab a coffee or something?" He blinked, pleasantly surprised. "Yeah, I'd like that." They exchanged numbers, and she left with a renewed sense of possibility. On the drive home, she ran her fingers over the small ring in her pocket. She felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the forge. She reminded herself to focus on her healing. But she also knew that sometimes healing came from unexpected connections. The next night, she found herself sitting at a small cafe not far from her home. Jake arrived a few minutes later, carrying his jacket. He ordered 2 cappuccinos and sat down across from her. The cafe's soft jazz music and warm lighting created a cozy atmosphere. They talked easily. He shared how he'd grown up in this town, always tinkering with metal, how blacksmithing became his passion. She told him about Ethan, how he loved building towers with blocks, and about her recent struggles with Daniel. They discovered mutual friends and swapped small anecdotes about living in the suburbs. At one point, Jake looked at her earnestly. "It's inspiring how you're rebuilding your life for Ethan. I have a lot of respect for that." Kira felt a flutter of emotion. "Thank you." She took a sip of coffee. "I'm just trying to be a good mom." He nodded. "And you're doing great." Something in his gaze made her breathe catch. She felt vulnerability flit inside her chest. I haven't felt this alive in a long time," she admitted. He reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "You deserve to feel alive." Her heart pounded. She withdrew her hand slightly, tension flashing in her eyes. "I can't. I'm not looking for anything serious right now." He smiled softly, withdrawing his hand. "I understand. I'm just happy to be friends. Whatever you need." She exhaled, relieved but disappointed. "Thanks." They finished their coffees, then lingered a few moments before saying goodnight. Outside, the night air was crisp. She watched him walk away, then turned and headed back to her car. She felt a swirl of emotions: hope, guilt, fear. She had come so far, but did taking this next step mean she was ready to let someone else in? The following week brought new challenges. The bank mailed her new checks. She met with the accountant to sort out joint taxes. She scheduled a custody mediation appointment for 2 weeks from now. Each step was a fresh reminder of the life she was now forging on her own. One evening, after dropping Ethan at daycare, she sat in the kitchen scrolling through her phone when a new text lit up the screen. "We need to talk." It was from Daniel. She stared at it, stomach lurched. Cliffhanger. Kira and Jake explore a new friendship, but Kira sets clear boundaries. Meanwhile, Daniel attempts to reconnect, sending a cryptic message. Will she give him attention, or will she uphold the boundary she's drawn for her and Ethan's well-being? Thursday morning dawned with an icy chill. Kira's breath fogged in the air as she carried Ethan's coat upstairs. He rubbed his eyes, yawning, and she whispered, "Time to wake up, buddy." After breakfast, she dropped him at daycare and turned toward her home office, where a new stack of paperwork waited. Custody forms, school enrollment documents for next year, and calculations for child support. She spent the morning on phone calls. Her attorney confirmed the mediation appointment, 2 weeks from today at 2 p.m. She set a reminder. Her tax accountant confirmed that she could claim Ethan as a dependent, and he'd file the return on her behalf within the next week. Underneath the legal jargon, though, she felt an increasing sense of dread. Mediation meant having to sit in the same room as Daniel, possibly Amanda, and hash out parenting plans and visitation schedules. She shrugged off her anxiety as best she could. By mid-afternoon, she was at the blacksmithing studio, ready for her weekly class. Jake was waiting at the forge. "Hey, Kira," he greeted with a warm smile. "Pencils here." "Thanks," she replied. She glanced at her watch, only a half hour before closing time at daycare. She worked diligently, shaping another piece of metal under Jake's guidance. The rhythmic sound of hammer against steel was both meditative and empowering. For a moment, she forgot about taxes and mediation. But at 6 p.m., she drove to pick up Ethan. When she arrived, one of the daycare teachers greeted her. "Kira, hi. Can I talk to you for a second?" Her heart skipped. "Sure." The teacher, Ms. Ramirez, guided her to a corner of the playground. "Ethan's been complaining about his dad." Kira's heart dropped. "What do you mean?" Ms. Ramirez tutted sympathetically. "He's been asking about Daniel a lot, like, where's Daddy sleeping? Why doesn't Daddy come home?" She lowered her voice. "He seemed really upset today. Just wondering if you had anything to share so we can help." Kira took a deep breath. "Thanks for telling me." She knelt to Ethan's level as he walked up, clutching his dinosaur figurine. "Hey, Pumpkin." She kissed his forehead. "How was your day?" He frowned, biting his lip. "Daddy going to come pick me up?" Her chest ached. "No, sweetie, Daddy's not coming today." She held him close. "But Mommy's here, okay?" He nodded, eyes brimming with tears. Kira felt a bolt of guilt. She had promised him a stable home, and now he was scared. She crouched, trembling. "What did you tell them, buddy?" He sniffled. "Told them you said Daddy doesn't love me." Her heart shattered. "No, baby. Mommy loves you more than anything. Daddy doesn't live here anymore, but he still loves you too." She tried to keep her voice calm, hiding the sob in her throat. "But Mommy's here, and I'm not going anywhere." He hugged her tightly. "I miss Daddy." A wave of sadness crashed over her. She handed him to Miss Ramirez. "Thanks," she whispered. "I'll talk to him tonight." She took a deep breath, mustering composure. "He's making changes at home, okay? We'll talk about it." Ethan stayed quiet until they reached the car outside. Then he blurted, "Mommy, does Daddy live with another lady?" Kira's heart lurched. She watched his small hand grip the car seat. "Yes, buddy, but that's okay. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. But Mommy's here for you always." She buckled him in. "You ready to go home?" He nodded, leaning his head against the window. As she drove, Kira's mind churned with guilt and heartbreak. She thought back to how she had blocked Daniel's number. Now he was absent, and Ethan felt adrift. She desperately wanted to protect him. But how? That evening, when Jenna arrived to take over for the night, Kira was still unsettled. She paced the living room, watching Ethan sleep in the next room. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alice. "Lunch tomorrow? You look frazzled." She typed back, "Yes, need it," and set the phone aside. She sat at the dining table, flipping through a notebook filled with blacksmithing sketches. She aimed to distract herself, but every time she glanced at a half-finished ring design, her thoughts drifted back to mediation. She swallowed and opened her laptop, drafting an email to the mediator outlining custody parameters. Physical custody mostly with her, visitation weekends for Daniel, co-parenting responsibilities, etc. As she typed, her tears soaked the page. Suddenly, the front door opened. Daniel stepped in. He wore a black jacket over a white button-down shirt, too formal for a casual visit. His face looked gaunt, eyes dark under the overhead light. Kira's heart clenched. She rose and took a step forward. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you," he said quietly. "We need to talk about Ethan." She met his gaze, anger flickering. You saw him today at daycare? He ran a hand through his hair. Yes, he said you told him Daddy doesn't love him. Kira's throat tightened. He's confused, Daniel. You left. He closed his eyes briefly. I know. He sat at the edge of the couch. Look, I'm sorry. About everything. She folded her arms. You can't just walk in here and say you're sorry, Daniel. You left me to handle bank stuff, daycare, emotions, everything by myself. He took a deep breath. I realize that now. I messed up. He hesitated. But I want to do right by Ethan. I talked to the daycare staff. I'll pick him up tomorrow at 5 p.m. Kira's anger simmered. You're not negotiating his schedule like you're orchestrating a business meeting. You're his father. She leaned forward. Do you even know what you've done to him? He asked me why you don't come home. Daniel's eyes filled with remorse. I thought I was sparing him. I thought staying away would be easier. He ran his hand over his scruff. I see now it's not. Kira's voice shook. You're still making excuses. If you were here, he wouldn't be crying at daycare. He stood, placing his hands on her shoulders. I want to make this right. She yanked away. You want to make it right? Then start by showing up. Not with excuses, but with solutions. He's my priority. I will not have you flitting in and out of his life. She took a step back. Now leave. His face twisted in pain. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. I wrote something for Ethan. Can I give it to him, at least? She hesitated, but nodded. He retrieved a piece of lined paper from his pocket and held it out. It's a letter. He deserves an explanation. She took the note, heart pounding. Daniel nodded once and turned to leave. In the hallway, he paused. I love him. Then he walked out, closing the door softly behind him. Kira sank onto the couch, staring at the letter in her hand. She recognized Daniel's tense handwriting. She unfolded it and read, Dear Ethan, I know I haven't been around much lately. Mommy told me some things, and I want you to know how much I love you, even though I'm not at home every night. I think about you all the time. I hope we can still have fun together, build towers, feed ducks at the pond, read bedtime stories. You're the best part of my life, buddy, and I'm sorry I hurt you by leaving. I'm going to do better. Love always, Daddy. Kira felt tears sting her eyes as she folded the letter. She tucked it into her pocket. She knew she had to find a way to protect Ethan's emotional well-being. She picked up the phone and called Miss Ramirez at daycare. Kira? Hello. Miss Ramirez's voice was gentle. Can I bring Ethan a note tomorrow when I pick him up? Actually, Daniel wants to read it to him, Kira said. She swallowed. It's just a letter from his dad. Miss Ramirez hesitated, then said, Of course. As she climbed the stairs to put Ethan to bed, she cradled Daniel's letter in her palm. She felt the fragile weight of it, a father's guilt and hope, tied together with a few lines of apology. She prayed that this time the bridge he tried to build wouldn't collapse under their fractured trust. In Ethan's room, she tucked him under the blanket and kissed his forehead. She handed him the small folded letter. He looked up curiously. What's this? He asked. Daddy wrote you a note. Sweetie, she said softly, he wants you to know he loves you. He unfolded it carefully, scanning the familiar handwriting. Tears welled in his young eyes. Mommy, I miss him, he whispered. Kira's heart tightened. She sat on the edge of the bed, brushing a stray curl from his face. I know, baby. Me too. She wrapped an arm around him. But we'll figure this out together, okay? He nodded, sniffling. Okay. She kissed his cheek again and turned to leave. As she closed the door quietly, she leaned against it, exhaling deeply. Tomorrow, they would navigate another day of a new normal, one where Daniel was present again, carefully, tentatively, like tiptoeing across thin ice. Cliffhanger. Daniel attempts to reconnect by giving Ethan a heartfelt letter. Kira must decide how to handle his return for co-parenting, trying to protect Ethan's fragile emotions while navigating her own lingering hurt. The morning sun filtered through the curtains as Kira rose at 6 a.m., the comforter still tangled around her legs. She cradled the letter Daniel had written for Ethan in her hands, reflecting on his open apology last night. She had tried to protect Ethan's feelings, but the truth was, part of her wanted to protect herself too. She swallowed her guilt as she prepared breakfast for her son. Pancakes with fresh strawberries, his favorite. By 8 a.m., Jenna had dropped Ethan at daycare. On her way back, Kira escorted the letter into the daycare office and handed it to Miss Ramirez. "Please give this to him at quiet time," she whispered. The teacher nodded with a sympathetic smile. Kira then drove to her meeting with the mediator, Mr. Caldwell, at a small law office near the town center. She arrived early, nerves fluttering like trapped birds. The waiting room was sterile. Beige walls, plastic chairs, a coffee machine in the corner. She sat, heart pounding, going over her notes one last time. At 2 p.m., the mediator entered, introducing himself in a calm, reassuring tone. Daniel arrived a minute later, escorted by his lawyer, Ms. Weaver. He wore a crisp button-down shirt and pressed jeans. When he saw Kira, his eyes held regret, but also determination. He sat down opposite her, and Ms. Caldwell invited each to present their custody proposals. Kira took a deep breath. "I'd like to maintain primary physical custody of Ethan," she began, voice steady. "He's in daycare near my work area. I work from home 3 days a week, and my sister helps cover the other 2 days. Daniel's work schedule involves late nights, and I don't think it's in Ethan's best interest to have inconsistent visits." She paused, looking Daniel in the eye. "I propose that Daniel have visitation weekends every other weekend from Friday at 5 p.m. until Sunday at 6 p.m. He can also have a midweek visit from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Wednesdays." Her words were firm but fair. The mediator nodded, jotting notes. Daniel's lawyer leaned forward. "Mr. Morgan contests the midweek evening visitation due to his current living situation and travel for work." She glanced at Daniel. He looked uncertain. Daniel cleared his throat. "If it helps, I can rearrange my schedule. I want to be with him." He met Kira's gaze. "I'll figure something out." Kira's chest tightened. She wanted to trust him, but she'd been burned. She swallowed. "If you can guarantee Wednesday evenings at 5 p.m., I'm willing to allow it." She spoke quickly, concerned the conversation might derail. "But holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, will be shared equally. You can have him on Thanksgiving Day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Thanksgiving weekend every other year." The mediator nodded again. "Christmas arrangements." Kira exhaled. "Christmas Eve, Ethan stays with me until 5 p.m., then with Daniel until Christmas morning. Every other year, that switches." Her voice wavered slightly. She swallowed, steadying herself. "And Father's Day stays with Daniel from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Daniel exhaled heavily. "That seems fair." He reached into his jacket pocket and handed a folded piece of paper to the mediator. It was the letter he'd given to Ethan. "This is something I want included in our co-parenting plan. I want to maintain open communication. I propose we establish a weekly call at 7 p.m. every Sunday where I can talk to Ethan, no one else around." Kira stepped back. "During our discussions, I noticed Ethan's reliance on routine. If the call's every Sunday, I'll have to ensure he's not in bed or bedtime stories. She forced a smile. But I'm okay with that. The mediator typed both into the document. Excellent. Are there any other issues to address? They spent the next hour ironing out details, emergency contacts, holiday schedules, coordinating drop-off and pickup locations, insurance coverage, and sharing medical decisions. When it was done, the mediator printed the agreement. Both Kira and Daniel signed it, as did their lawyers. The room felt suddenly sterile and final, like a stage set for a play. As they left the office, the tension between them lingered in the air. Kira felt relief that custody was settled, but dread of what lay ahead. Co-parenting Daniel, maintaining boundaries, and ensuring. That evening, Kira picked up Ethan early. She handed Miss Ramirez a small envelope. "Give this to Ethan on the drive home, please." Inside was a second letter, this one from Kira to Ethan, explaining in simple terms why Daddy had to visit on certain days and reassuring him of her unwavering love. Miss Ramirez smiled. In the car, Kira handed Ethan his grilled chicken sandwich. He ate in quiet thought, then asked, "Mommy, is Daddy mad at me?" Her chest ached. "No, sweetheart. Daddy loves you very much." She paused, finding the words. "He's still learning how to be a good dad, but you're safe with me." She held his small hand. "We'll always be together, just like we promised." He nodded, looking down. "Will Daddy still read me bedtime stories?" He leaned back in his seat. "Okay." They drove in comfortable silence, dusk collecting on the horizon. When they arrived home, Kira set Ethan's sandwiches on a small side table, then turned to him. "Do you want to read a story with Mommy tonight?" He shook his head. "Daddy's reading tonight." She felt a sting. "Okay." She guided him to the front door. As they stepped inside, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. Kira took a steadying breath. Ethan's small hand tightened around hers. "Mommy," Ethan whispered, looking at her with wide eyes. She kneeled before him. "You ready?" He nodded. She led him toward the front door. Daniel was waiting on the porch, raincoat draped over him, though it wasn't raining. He smiled tentatively. "Hey, buddy." Ethan's face lit up. "Daddy." Daniel scooped him into his arms and hugged him. Ethan buried his face into Daniel's shoulder. Kira watched from the doorway, her heart pounding. She raised her hand slightly. "I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m., okay?" Daniel nodded. "I'll give him his bath and story." Kira glanced at Ethan's eyes. He was calm now, looking up at Daniel with trust. She managed a small nod and turned to leave. As she closed the door, she felt the weight shift in her chest. This was her new normal. That night, Kira sat at her desk, bruised but determined. She opened her laptop and typed an email to Ethan's daycare teacher. "Thank you for being understanding today. Please let me know how the letter affected him. We want to ensure we're helping him adjust." She pressed send. She gazed out the window. Streetlights cast long, golden pools of light on the sidewalk. She sipped a cup of chamomile tea, reflecting on the day's steps, signing the custody agreement, sending Ethan with his father, covering both of their needs. She realized how fragile trust could be, yet also how necessary it was to move forward. She reminded herself that her focus must remain on Ethan's safety and happiness, no matter how complicated Daniel's role became. As she climbed into bed, she checked her phone one last time. A text from Jake. "Hope blacksmithing helped today. Want to meet for coffee Saturday morning?" Her pulse quickened. She typed back, "Yes, I'd like that." Another small step toward rebuilding herself. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Kira allowed herself to believe that things could get better. She would fight for her son's well-being, maintain her boundaries with Daniel, and hold on to the memory of forging steel, shaping something strong and beautiful from a raw lump of metal. In her dreams, she saw molten steel shimmering in the fire, a testament to her own resilience. Cliffhanger. Kira and Daniel formalize custody, sending Ethan to his father's arms. Kira braces herself for co-parenting complexity. Meanwhile, she begins to explore a budding friendship with Jake, balancing healing, parenting, and maybe new love. The weeks that followed were a delicate balancing act. Kira settled into a routine, mornings at home with Ethan, afternoons negotiating daycare logistics, and evenings alternating between self-care and occasional blacksmithing sessions. Daniel's weekend visits became routine. Pick up Friday evenings, a midweek dinner on Wednesdays, and drop off Sunday evenings. Despite the tension that lingered, small moments of normalcy began to emerge. Daniel taking Ethan to the park on Saturdays, Kira receiving photos of Ethan and his father building a Lego castle, and at times, faint echoes of the family they once were. Yet each Monday morning as Kira dropped Ethan at daycare, she felt a pang. The house felt. He nodded, leaning forward. I was looking forward to this. He took a sip. How's everything been? She sighed, switching between bite-sized pastry. Better. It's still hard with co-parenting Daniel, but Ethan's adjusting. Every time I pick him up on Monday, he runs to me with a big hug. She managed a small, bittersweet smile. He's bathing with his dad tonight again. I miss him, but I know it's good for Ethan. Jake nodded. It sounds like you both are making the best of a tough situation. She exhaled. And you? How's work? He smiled, eyes soft. Same as always. But teaching blacksmithing has been invigorating. Helping students discover a hidden talent in themselves, it's rewarding. Their conversation turned to lighter topics. Recipes, weekend plans, local art shows. Despite the heaviness of Kira's life, talking with Jake felt like a breath of fresh air. His easy laughter and genuine interest chipped away at her armor, letting sunlight in. On Sunday evening, as Daniel returned with Ethan, Kira watched from the doorway, a warm rug draped across her shoulders. Ethan bounded inside, gleefully holding a new drawing. Look, Mommy, he said, showing off his watercolor painting of the pond where he and his dad fed ducks. Kira admired it, placing a gentle kiss on his cheek. It's beautiful, sweetie. Daniel followed behind, carrying a backpack of bedtime stories. He handed Kira his weekly update. Daycare said Ethan was coping well, but occasionally asked about when our home would be together again. Kira felt a familiar pang, but nodded solemnly. I'll talk to him tomorrow. It might help if he understands how things work. Daniel's gaze flickered with regret. I wish I knew the right way to explain. He handed Kira an envelope. I wrote another letter, but feel free to edit it before you give it to him. Kira took the note, then noticed the soft way Daniel watched her. It was a far cry from the man who once left her in a spiral of doubt. She folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her pocket. Thank you, she said, voice gentle. He nodded. I'm trying. Then they agreed on Ethan's bedtime. Daniel would handle the bath and story reading. Kira retreated to the living room, sipping tea as she watched her son and his father disappear upstairs. In that moment, she realized that while Daniel had changed, the path back to trust was still steep. After they tucked Ethan in, Kira closed the door and slid down to the floor, pressing her back against it. She pulled out Daniel's letter, another heartfelt apology and reassurance of love. She sighed, tears in her eyes. She thought of everything she'd gone through, the betrayal, the anger, the custody mediation, and the small moments of tenderness she saw in Daniel's interactions with their son. She folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. She wasn't sure if she could keep it close yet. Days later, Kira sat in her blacksmithing studio, hammering a new piece of metal. This time, she was forging a small pendant shaped like a tree, symbolic of growth and new beginnings. She struck the red-hot metal with each blow echoing in her bones, releasing frustration and fear with every spark. Jake watched from a few feet away. As she cooled the piece in water, steam hissed, and she felt something shift inside her. The shape was rough, imperfect, just like her life, but it was hers, created by her own hands. She smiled at the pendant and realized that no matter what happened with Daniel or parenting, Kira took a sip of her iced tea. I also talked to Daniel about next month's vacation schedule. We agreed Ethan will spend Christmas Eve with me and Christmas morning with him. She exhaled. It's not perfect, but he's trying. Jenna placed a hand on hers. You're doing everything right. Kira smiled. Thanks. She thought a moment, added, You know, I never thought I could be happy again, but I am, little by little. She looked at her sister. I think I'm ready to date too. Not now, but soon. Jenna's grin spread wide. That's great. You deserve that. As the days turned to weeks, Kira found herself juggling co-parenting challenges, blacksmithing projects, freelance work, and forming a tentative friendship with Jake. She appreciated how Jake didn't push her. Instead, he offered support without pressure. One Saturday morning, after a community blacksmithing demonstration, they sat side by side on the studio porch, sipping lemonade. I've been thinking, Kira said quietly. I want to try creating a small collection of jewelry. Maybe theme it around healing and growth. Would you help me with some techniques? He set down his glass. Absolutely. I'd love to collaborate. He reached over, brushing her shoulder. You have an amazing eye for design. Her heart fluttered. Thanks. I feel like forging these pieces is like forging my life. Taking raw material, smashing out the flaws, then polishing it to something beautiful. He nodded thoughtfully. I get that. Let's create something special together. As they talked, the late morning sun bathed them in warmth. Kira realized she'd found a place where her past could stay in the forge's glow, transforming pain into beauty. She glanced at Jake, gratitude and a new spark of hope shining in her eyes. That evening, as she tucked Ethan into bed, he held up the tree pendant he'd found in the drawer. Mommy, did you make this? He asked, eyes wide. She smiled, kneeling beside him. Yes, sweetie. It's for you, a special tree for our family. She slipped the pendant around his neck. It rested gently against his chest. This tree reminds us that even when storms come, we grow stronger. He smiled, hugging her neck. I like it. Then he yawned. I love you, Mommy. She kissed his forehead. I love you too, baby. She turned out the light. Standing in the doorway, watching him sleep, Kira felt a deep sense of peace. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, an echo of the life she was forging. She realized that while her marriage with Daniel had ended, she was not broken. She was growing. Like the trees she loved to watch in the park, roots digging deep despite storms, branches always reaching for sunlight. That night, Kira sat at her desk and began drafting the Etsy shop page, forged resilience jewelry, handcrafted symbols of strength and renewal. She typed with steady focus, describing each design's meaning, rings shaped like rising suns, pendants etched with the word hope, and earrings inspired by raindrops that nourished the earth. As her words took shape, she felt the final threads of her old life slipping away. In their place, a tapestry of new beginnings. Stubborn resilience and quiet joy unfolded, with each hammer strike in the studio, each late-night work session, each heartfelt conversation with Jake. She was forging her own destiny, strong, purposeful, and entirely her own.